Ready?
Ready.
Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you for attending Natick 101. We are Community and Economic Development. This is part 3 of a multi-part series with 2 previous sessions prior to this, which can be found on the Pegasus YouTube channel. I'm Amanda. I am the Director of Community Economic Development, and we have a series of slides, some kind of like interactive things, and then also some panel discussion. So really what we're here to do is learn how things come together in community economic development. So we have a lot to cover, but very little time to do it in. We're going to tell you about us. We're also going to tell you how things actually get done or how they come forward. Looking at Natick 2030, then we'll go into the different facets of planning. We also have some building and permitting, and then we're going to talk about some collaboration and then re-envisioning. We do not have conservation here because conservation is going to be going with a later session with sustainability. So really, what is community economic development? Community economic development is really anything that you can touch, see, experience within a community. There are many different facets of development. There are many different facets of planning. There are a lot of different types of community. You could be a community in your neighborhood, you could be a community in your town, you could be a community in your church, you could be a community in your school. So this looks at a lot of different things. So we have to have a big picture idea. But really we look at economic development, we have housing, transportation, permitting, conservation, sustainability, land use, etc. But we do support a lot of working items within the community. So about us. So community economic development is a large department. We may be one of the largest departments within Town Hall, not within the town. We have the Community Economic Development Director, but we also have the Building Commissioner. And so with those 2 different types of titles, we have a lot of different individuals that support the work we do. So the Building Commissioner oversees everything on the building side. Underneath him, we have a senior building official and a local building inspector. Those are the guys that go out to the different job sites and do the inspections. But we also have inspectors that also go out to the job sites. Those are gas and plumbing and then electrical. We also have a weights and measures person. If you ever go to the gas pumps and you see a sticker on there, it's because Weights and Measures has been out there. We also have our office manager who oversees everything in the middle that pulls everything from the building side and the planning side together, and we have 2 administrative assistants. We also have some great senior workers that have come back and helped us out, and then we have some clerical assistants that really help make all the work come together. And then under the planning side, we have the conservation agent / environmental planner, we have the transportation and economic development planner, we have the community planner, and we have the associate planner, but we also have some interns. This all comes together in trying to get as much done with the least amount of resources that we have, because this is what we are allowed to have at this time. So who is CDD? You call us. These are the individuals that may or may not answer the phone. They may or may not answer your emails, but these are the guys and girls who come forward. So we have the building inspection team, and you can see everybody. We have 6 different individuals that actually work for that. We do have a couple others on call. We have the administrative side, so we have 5 members that are really in the office on a regular basis. And then on the planning side, we have about 4 of us. So here today, we do have Olivia. She is our community planner. Community planner really focuses on housing and also Community Preservation Act, in addition to historic resources and then arts and culture. Next to her, we have Morgan Griffiths. He is our transportation economic development planner. Next to Morgan, there is Peg. She is our office manager. And then next to Peg, we have Dave Gusmini, who is our building commissioner, code enforcement, sign officer, and I'm not sure all of his rest of his titles. They're long. So we don't do this all by ourselves, as you saw. We only have so many individuals in our department, but as you will see in the next slides, we do cover a lot. So our collaboration is necessary for us to function as a department, but also as a town, and also serve landowners, residents, businesses. So when we collaborate, we are working with the Board of Health and the Health Department, Fire and Police, DPW, Sustainability, and other departments On top of that, we also serve many boards. We serve the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission, the Open Space and Recreation, in addition to historic resources and many more. And then other collaborations. We have to work collaboratively with town meeting and other local residents to actually achieve projects. So what I'd like you to do is just stand up for like a few minutes, and if you're at home, if you could just grab a piece of paper and a pencil, and then if you're in the audience, could you come up and just grab a piece of paper and a marker? And just stand right by there. So this is going to be about 3 minutes, so if you're at home, I'd love it if you could follow along with us. So what we're really trying to do is think about a lot of the things that we have to think about. So building your community through visioning. So if you had this paper and that is your boundaries of your neighborhood or your town, what would be the first thing that you would put in your community? Would it be roads? Would it be houses? Would it be your center? What would be the first item that you would want to put into a community if you could build it from scratch? From there, now you're going to have to think about, if you didn't add roads, how are your roads going to work to get you places within that community? Would they be main roads, side roads, paths, more bicycle friendly, trails, non-vehicular? Now, if you've got your roads and you've got your main central part, if you added some type of amenities, where do the people who live? And also, what do they need? Do they need schools? Do they need hospitals, stores, etc.? And where would they be placed in relation to those homes? And then on top of all that, don't forget that you need maybe some open space or some place for recreation. You might have some water resources, but then you also have to remember the public infrastructure. So we have either town water and sewer, so you would need a sewer treatment plant. You may need a water tanks, or if you had town power, we could have a power company, etc. So all these things need to fit within your community, or you do have to outsource. But if you outsource, you actually have to plan how you're going to outsource and who you're going to collaborate with. On top of all that, you may actually, since it's a new community, you wouldn't have as many historic resources, but you might have some cultural things that you want to make sure that you either preserve, protect, or just make sure that they remain consistent throughout your community, so you always have to be mindful of that. Cool. So now that you have kind of a mini community, now if you actually think about everything that has to go into that, you would actually need permits to make sure that everything is being built safely and appropriately, that land uses are appropriate and compliant with each other. You don't want a toxic waste dump next to your elementary school, and things like that. So these are all things that we, as planners and as a building department, have to think about every single day. So that is kind of why I wanted you guys to draw this. So if you guys want to sit back down at your tables, but keep these with you because we will need them at the end. Where do we get our direction from, and how do we actually start these initiatives? Well, as we kind of just went through, we looked at land uses, we looked at economic development, transportation, housing, and building. We also have these other items, and the reason why conservation is lower on the yellow is because, like I mentioned previously, our conservation agent is doing a different session, so we're not going to focus as much on that. But we also have historic preservation and planning. Where do we get our ideas from? Plans, reports, data. One of the big drivers of how we move forward with projects, whether it be at town meeting, reports, major projects that you see, is actually Natick 2030. That is the town's comprehensive master plan. This was developed through basically a community engagement process where members of the community identified things that they would want to see in their community 5 years, 10 years down the road. It is very difficult. Before you would actually put together a master plan, it'd be looking at 20 years out. And if you think of where you were 20 years ago and today, technology has significantly changed. You've got smaller phones. You have now you have an iPhone, you have laptops compared to desktops, etc. But Natick 2030 is not a standalone document. This is actually supported by many other plans that go into much more finite information. This is the big, huge umbrella, if you think of it that way. This is the umbrella, and then you have everything going underneath it. So one of the topics that we will talk about is land use. So what is land use planning? Land use planning has been around for a long time. It actually was originally coupled with health because back 1920s and earlier, you had industry next to residents, you had different types of illnesses and people were getting sick, you had tenements, etc. So what they wanted to do was separate the uses to allow for neighborhoods to be separated from manufacturing. Also, what is land use planning? It gives us direction of how land should be used. So should this land be used for manufacturing, commercial, residential, farming? We have to look at a lot of different things on top of that, which is soils, topography, wetlands, etc. What types of documents shape land use? Well, we have long and short range plans. So that's like Natick 2030. But a short range plan could be like the Golden Triangle Plan that was done back in 2019, which focuses on a specific area. We also have the zoning bylaws, which many of you may or may not know. We are in the process of updating because those need to be consistent with the master plan, but also what the community wants to see. We also have subdivision rules and regs. Subdivision rules and regs are really only allowing members of the community to divide their land and to create roads. It does not really look at the houses on there. That's a different department, our division within our department. We also have regulations and policies as we have to move forward, but we also have to make sure that we are compliant with Massachusetts general law and other initiatives that come down from the state, such as accessory dwelling units or MBTA communities. But it is really important to have actual land use planning within your community so you know where things can go. One of the other items that you may or may not be familiar with, this is the zoning map. So this actually dictates what can and cannot be allowed within these zoning districts when you couple it with the zoning bylaw. So we have a use regulation schedule that says you can really only have single family and two families within the yellow tan colored. You can actually have multifamily in that brighter green color in the central, but then when you get up to the pink area where kind of like the eye of the dog is or ski goggles, you can actually have commercial or like research development, etc. So we are always looking at that. Another item that we are looking at is economic development, which I will turn over to Morgan.
Hello, everyone. As Amanda mentioned, my name is Morgan. I work as a transportation and economic development planner. So CED does work in economic development, which is a process that aims to improve a community's economic well-being and vitality. So it's a pretty broad discipline. The way I see it, it covers three main aspects. The first is business attraction, retention, and expansion. So that's essentially just attracting businesses to Natick, getting them to stay and grow in Natick. And this occurs through marketing, economic incentives, technical assistance, and more. The second aspect is small business development. So small businesses are the lifeblood of a community's day-to-day activities. Many residents are employed in small businesses, and it's important to recognize that they have needs that may be slightly different than larger companies like your MathWorks or Cognex or things like that. And so in our department, we try to be mindful of that and supportive of those needs. Also, the third is employment and workforce development. This is really making sure that residents of the community can find and keep gainful employment, and also that local businesses can fulfill hiring needs. And so these sort of aspects are reflected in the goals of Natick 2030 Plus, specifically for economic development. Natick 2030 Plus recommends developing Natick as a hub for 20th century industries, and also encouraging the identification of market opportunities to support additional commercial growth, and really looking at encouraging businesses to come into vacant spaces or spaces that are being redeveloped. So we do not do this work alone. CED partners with several organizations, including Natick Center Associates, which is the nonprofit organization that runs the Natick Center Cultural District, as well as the Economic Development Commission, which is a volunteer committee that advises the Select Board on economic development matters, and the Metro West Visitors Bureau and the Metro West Chamber of Commerce. So a selection of current economic development projects that we're working on, including updating the town's zoning requirements and permitting processes to be more understandable and predictable to make it as easy as possible for folks who want to start a business in Natick to be able to. Working on an update of Natick's business guide, which helps prospective owners navigate the process of opening a business in town. Conducting periodic visits to small businesses to understand their needs and how we can respond to them. And finally, we've also been working with Natick Center Associates to market the commercial spaces and the mixed-use developments that you've seen coming online in Natick Center. So Amanda, if you actually go to the next slide, this is an example of some of the marketing material that has been created to go into packets to distribute to potential commercial tenants. This shows who lives in Natick and why, or a profile of a potential customer for those businesses. And for more information and previous economic development work, you can check out the economic development tab on the CED website. And then I will also cover transportation. It's important to note that transportation is critically linked to land use and economic development, the topics we've already talked about. And as we explored during the exercise in the beginning, there's this critical link here. Where we decide to locate things has a big impact on how we get to them and vice versa. So this is true whether it's businesses, houses, open space, what have you. And so transportation planners take this link into account, and we use existing and projected future conditions alongside community goals and visioning to design and improve transportation systems for future use. Transportation planning considers multiple modes of transportation, including driving, walking, cycling, taking transit, as well as all different kinds of users, including folks of different ages and abilities. So if you think about the transportation system in Natick, that includes its roadways and parking spaces, its trail system, its sidewalks, its bike infrastructure, bike parking, as well as the transit routes that serve the town. So CED works on transportation planning with a host of partners. Internally, these include engineering and the Engineering and Highway Divisions, the Department of Public Works, which can help turn ideas and plans into physical reality, the Police and the Safety Committee, who are experts in traffic safety and enforcement, and the Transportation Advisory Committee, which is a volunteer committee that advises the Select Board on transportation projects. Externally, external partners include the Metro West Regional Transit Authority and the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority, which provide bus and train service, respectively. The town actually sits on the advisory boards of both organizations, so we can sort of get a say on their budgets and occasionally some of their policy choices. Other external partners include MassDOT, which owns certain roadways in town and provides grant funding to transportation projects, as well as the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization, which provides technical assistance and federal and state funds to transportation projects within the Boston region. So CED is currently involved in several transportation planning projects that support the transportation goals in Natick 2030 plus, which include improving safety for all roadway users, reducing congestion, and improving transportation access for all road users, so cars, bikes, pedestrians, transit, etc. So a selection includes the Main Street Improvement Study, in which we are looking at potential improvements for pedestrian and bicycle safety and mobility along Main Street in Natick Center, an assessment of existing bike infrastructure in town, which so far has resulted in a map of bike parking that is currently available on our website, and a reassessment of parking in Natick Center, given the changing nature of commuting downtown and commuting and shopping in the post-COVID era, and the anticipated influx of new residents in the downtown area. So other transportation projects that you've probably heard of are occurring in Natick that are not owned or managed by CED or other town departments. These include the reconstruction of the Natick Center commuter rail station, an extension of the Cochituate Rail Trail, that is being done by the MBTA, and the replacement of the Route 27 bridge over Route 9, which is being done by MassDOT. And while we don't own these projects, we do work alongside DPW, the police, town administration, communications, to coordinate between these project managers and the town and communicate project impacts to residents.
So another facet of planning, and which is also supported by Natick 2030 and many other plans, is housing. So Olivia will be discussing housing.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the community planner, and as Amanda mentioned earlier, I staff the Community Preservation Committee, the Historic District Committee, Historic District Commission, and the Historical Society. And I also attend the Natick Affordable Housing Trust meetings. But today we're going to be going over housing and housing production plans. So this happens every 5 years. We're currently working on it. It was last completed in March 2021. And it's to help municipalities better understand the housing need, the demand, development, and constraints. So the key information we need for this is analysis of physical regulations and development, identification of specific sites for housing production, housing goals, and annual numeric metrics. When this was last completed in March 2021, we had the Barrett Group complete this, and they had visioning sessions and also some surveys, which we'll try to have some more of or choose other avenues for getting this information. And the purpose of this is to find out what Natick needs from the residents and what Natick doesn't need from the residents. And this will help us by determining what types of housing we need, if we need more single family, multifamily, mixed use, or accessory dwelling units, but it will be based on what the residents want, which will go into the housing production plan, which is needed to get grants and other information like that. What else do we have? So then some other resources we have are the home funds, which we get by having I can go, I'm kind of going through this quickly, but this is, so yeah, these are the housing types. There's a lot of words, so I'm letting people have some time to read. So yeah, we say multifamily or mixed use, but these are the things that those words mean. We recently allowed accessory dwelling units by right in Massachusetts, so they're allowable with reasonable regulations set by the town. If anybody has any more questions, you can ask that later. And then, so these are some other housing resources. We have the home funds, which we need the housing production plan to receive. And then we have our tenant-based rental assistance, which is administered by Family Promise, which is the home funds that we receive. And then we recently started a affordable housing lottery sign up on our town page, which lets people be notified of housing lotteries that are in and around Natick. There's a lot more information on our website. It's kind of confusing what to click on just looking at it, but yes, there's more information on our website.
Awesome. So our next topic is building and enforcement. So we have all of the design, we have everything that needs to move forward, but then we actually have the building department who really needs to move forward. And I don't know if Dave wants to go through this as the building commissioner.
Sure.
Microphone. It's on.
So hi, I'm Dave. I'm the building commissioner here in this Natick. Been here for 20-odd years, so I know a few things about Natick. Part of what we do here, building enforcement, building codes and everything, the building department is in charge of all permitting. So you're talking plumbing, electric, gas, building permits, certificate of occupancy permits. There's a huge variety of different type of permits that we administer, and so everything, as it says, everything is kind of governed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulations, CMRs, and also the Massachusetts Building Code. All right, state building code. Fun fact: the building code. There's a new building code that just came out. It's going to be in full effect as of right now. It's going to be in full effect January 1st. It's the 10th edition. It's on the 2021 version of the international codes, all right? So IBC, IRC with the Massachusetts amendment. So all that's coming down the pipe. So that's, if you're doing a project right now, you want to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, okay? Different divisions that we have in the building department, again, building, electrical, gas, plumbing, weights and measures. So I'm in charge of the weights and measures inspector. As Amanda kind of said earlier, weights and measures, you folks, most people don't realize that there's a weights and measures person out there, but there is. And so they make sure that if the gas pump says you're getting 1.3 gallons of gas, you're actually getting 1.3 gallons of gas. If you're at the supermarket and they do the electronic eye scanner and it scans $2.18, it has to be the right price. So they check all that stuff. Weights. For anything that's weights, you go to the deli, whatever. If you actually look at the scale that's at the deli in the fish market, whatever, you're going to see there's a little sticker on there that's weights and measures, and it's signed off by that inspector. So we have to certify that the weight is correct. They take out the tear weight of the packaging and so forth and so on. So that's part of what we do. And zoning enforcement, so Natick is loaded with zoning bylaws, as is every other community around. Part of a building official's job is to enforce zoning bylaws and also town bylaws. So those are two total different animals. Town bylaws are one thing, zoning bylaws are the other. Building officials, we enforce both. So permitting, we do everything, as I said before, permitting, no matter what it is. We do literally thousands of permits every year. From a dishwasher to look around downtown. I mean, you got these big 30, 40 unit buildings coming in with residential, with commercial underneath, residential above, so forth. So we do all that stuff too. Inspections are just part of the game. All right, so that's one of the things that we do. So again, if you've ever done a project at your own home, you know that there are multiple inspections before you can proceed to the next level of the project. So if you dig a hole and before you can put a foundation in it, a piece of concrete or something like that in it, you have to make sure that we have to come out and look at it, that make sure that the foundation, the dirt that you're putting on the material is stable, so that your project doesn't kind of sink into the ground. I mean, that would kind of be no fun. So we check all that sort of things. And then from insulation and, just on and on. Enforcement, again, is also part of what we do. So enforcement of the state building codes, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulations, zoning law, all sorts of different things. Mass General, Natick General and zoning bylaws, again, as I said, those are two separate entities, but the building official, we have to, interpret and enforce that also. Decisions granted by a permitting board or a commission. So if you go to the zoning board or the planning board, and there's an order, it's called an order of conditions, all right? So you go through the whole process, all of a sudden, you come to the end and the board says, okay, we like this project, but you have to plant 10 arborvitaes out front, 3 daisies, and whatever, put up a mailbox or something, right? So if that's a part of the order of conditions, the building official, so myself and my two building officials, we have to enforce that order of conditions. So literally before that person or that entity would get a certificate of occupancy, we actually have to go out there and count. It says, we take the thing and 4 arborvitaes, 1, 2, 3, 4, good. If there's 3, you got to plant another one. We won't sign off on the CO, so that's all part of it. That's all part of the stuff that we kind of enforce. There's an awful lot of different things. This is just kind of high level, but it goes on and on.
So one of the other pieces that we do have that leads in or comes from Dave's conversation is permitting. So the importance of permitting, we need to make sure that everything is done in a safe and also a predictable manner. But these are the types of permits that we do have. So the planning board offers special permits, site plan review, subdivisions. Zoning Board of Appeals has Section 6 findings, variances, and special permits. They also do the comprehensive permit. A comprehensive permit is basically a 40B, which is what 45 East Central is, a St. Patrick's project, where the town and the applicant may be in agreement to allow certain types of housing where that project is actually a higher requirement of affordable units than what is typically required of a multifamily. We also have the building permits, so there's a lot of different types of building permits: electrical permits, gas permits, plumbing permits, and support of other permits. But one of the big things that has actually helped us streamline or improve the review of these permits is the OpenGov, which came in May of 2022. And I'm going to let Peg talk just a brief bit about, one, the experience of a resident using OpenGov, and then also on the applicant side.
I am? Okay. Hello, I'm Peg Waters. I'm the office manager of CED, and I supervise the administrative staff in the department. OpenGov online permitting has basically changed the life of the building department. We've gone paperless, which is huge in municipal government. And you log onto the system through our town website, you create an account, and then you apply for whatever permit you need. The admin staff on the other side will review the permit before it goes to the inspectors, making sure insurance, licenses, plans, plot plans, any document that's required for just the application part of the building permit is uploaded before it goes to the inspector for further review. And I have some pretty neat numbers. Since January 1 of this year, our administrative staff has reviewed and approved 1,035 building permits, 1,246 electrical permits, 246 roofing permits, 804 plumbing, and 562 gas. So we are extremely busy in the department. And on top of it, we answer the phone from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day, with 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., averaging over 100 phone calls in that hour. That's when our plumbing and gas and electrical inspectors are in the office, and when their licensed professionals call to make inspection appointments with the inspectors. So we are extremely busy. And, we're there to answer any questions from contractors and homeowners, or, someone who's just thinking of doing something in their home. There's always the window. You can come up and talk to any of the staff. The inspectors are in the office, the building inspectors, from 8 to 10, Monday through Friday, and then 4 to 5, Monday through Thursday. So we are definitely open and hopping for business. Another pretty cool number, since July 1st, we've accounted for, do I want to use? Received?
Issued permits, yeah.
Yep. So the issued permits since July 1 have brought in $1,279,860. Since January 1st, our department has brought in the revenue of $3,360,259. We are extremely busy. And, the transition from the paper permits to the online system, it was a little tough in the beginning, but it seems as though everyone's pretty much caught on, and we're always here to help if you just reach out to the department.
So one of the things that we do have, in addition to circling back to the little neighborhood or community that you created, is panel discussion, which is why we brought everyone with us. So we have some questions that we get commonly asked or help to clarify. And so one of the big questions that I would like to ask Morgan is, how do you attract development? Do you go out and actively seek the development in terms of businesses or industry, or do they actually seek Natick?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there is certainly, part of that business attraction, retention, and expansion thing is making sure that you're producing marketing materials. You're sort of doing your research, right, and saying like, okay, what companies are out there? What is the market in specific industries looking like at this particular time? How does Natick sort of stack up as like a community where these places might want to locate? What about us is unique? What can we market to these businesses? And I think there is definitely a part of the job that is sort of creating these marketing materials and kind of distributing them to businesses. That's why one of the many reasons why Natick Center Associates is such a wonderful partner is because they do this work with us, and they have a specific focus on smaller businesses within Natick Center, and I think that's great to be able to work with them to attract these smaller businesses on top of your larger businesses like your MathWorks, that sort of thing. But we also get a fair amount of folks who are looking to start a business who will contact our department. So, for instance, if you are familiar with 10 Tree Books in Natick Center, Amanda and I actually talked to Kim, the woman who runs that, I think back in last year, and she was like, "Hey, I'm thinking of starting this bookstore in Natick. I just wanted to talk to you guys, see if there's any available space that you know about that we can potentially move into." And so we've been having sort of conversations with her, and we're thrilled that she was able to open up in Natick Center. So it's a bit of both.
Awesome, thank you. So, Dave, do you actually predict the size of the housing, the styles of housing, and the prices, or is that set by the market itself?
That's set by the market. It's kind of individual preference at that point. So if you're looking to do a new house, typically all the builders around here, everybody in the realtors and everything, there are certain style houses that sell in this town. So if you look around, pretty much everyone, the newer ones are kind of the same. That's all individual preference for for whomever the person is doing the project. But in general, it's really what everybody else is doing at the same time type deal.
Cool. So Olivia, if I were looking for affordable housing, what are some resources that I could use to find that affordable housing? And does the town lease or sell those affordable units, or is it a separate entity?
So the town does not lease or sell any of these things, but on our website we have the Affordable Housing Lottery, and then also we'd refer you to Family Promise if you're looking for tenant-based rental assistance, and they would determine if you're eligible. But no, the town does not sell houses.
Great. Thank you. So this is going to be a question for each one of you. So we'll start with Dave. How do you actually stay current in your profession in terms of continuing education or being up to date with the most recent?
So we have constant trainings, meetings. We have a bunch of different associations that we do monthly meetings at that have annual, monthly conversations about. It's like right now, the big topics for everybody is the stretch code or the energy codes, and also the new building code that's coming out. So that is a huge topic right now. My staff, we do multiple trainings on zoning law. Zoning law always changes. If you know anything about zoning law, Chapter 48 is one of the grayest and most litigated laws in the entire Commonwealth. It's amazing. So that's always changing. So we actively go out training. And then honestly, the on-the-job experience, I can answer the phone. I can talk to somebody about their swimming pool, and then the next phone call could be about a sprinkler riser in a 12-story building. Why isn't it working right? You know what I'm saying? So it kind of, there's no easy whatever, but so training.
Cool. Peg?
Well. As far as the Zoning Board of Appeals goes, I attend training as well. Yearly, I attend different classes to keep up on 40A because it's a tough law to obey. The admin staff, I train the admin staff about the permitting system and procedures, and when the building codes change, our job changes. So it's open communication with the inspectors and the commissioner. We also have bi-weekly staff meetings that the 15 of us sit down and share our knowledge about what's going on in town, what's happening with affordable housing and the commissioner and the buildings that are happening. So it's open communication with the staff and making sure that everyone has the information that they need.
Thanks. Morgan?
I think it's a few things. There's always a lot of webinars and conferences and things to attend. I think we rely on our regional partners. So I mentioned the Metropolitan Planning Organization as well as the MAPC, or Metropolitan Area Planning Council. They will often provide webinars and learning activities for communities in the region. I'm also a relatively newer hire, and I found it just very, very helpful just to ask questions, especially to the folks in the DPW, because they're in a separate building, and so sometimes it can feel like we're a little bit separated from their processes, but just talking to them has been very, very helpful, I think.
And Olivia?
In addition to everything Morgan said, I would say courses on geographic information systems, also known as GIS, to help with mapping and data management. Also courses on CAD and stuff like that helps with planning.
So this one's
What about you, Amanda? How do you?
basically the same things that Morgan and Olivia did, but would also listening to various podcasts. The American Planning Association has an actually really cool podcast. They touch on different topics on a weekly basis, whether it be housing, sustainability, transportation, and it's only about 20 minutes long, but you can find that on anywhere you find podcasts, but it's the American Planning Association podcast. Also reading books. There are a lot of great books written about topics, whether they be nonprofit or nonfiction or biographies. One of the recent books that came out, if anyone is very interested in housing, is called Evicted. And then he followed up with a second book about poverty. And it really takes you through the different parts of what it is to be a landlord, also receiving services, but also trying to navigate the system in staying housed. So it's actually a very quick read, and it's a good read, and he followed up with poverty. There's also The High Cost of Parking, a very long read, but a very good read. But we're always reading something, whether it be books or articles or just things in the newspaper, because it's interesting to see what other communities are looking at. We also go to a lot of MAPC, which is our area Planning Commission, but we're part of Metro West Regional Collaborative. So we get to collaborate with Wellesley, Wayland, is it Sherburne, Framingham, Wellesley, and I feel like there's two more in there, but
Ashland.
Yep, Ashland. And so it's nice because we get to collaborate. And that's a big thing. I think the thing that everyone was mentioning is collaboration. You can learn as much as you want, but if you don't collaborate with everybody else, that information just stays there. But you should share your information with other people so they can continue to learn as you can continue to learn from them as well. So Dave, if I wanted to build a fence, how close to that lot line can I be?
So for a fence, a building permit is not required, okay? As long as it's 6 feet or under, permit is not required. That's a state rule, so I follow the state laws. So, and we don't have a bylaw that makes it. So for a fence 6 feet high, it can be, you have to put it in 1 foot in from the property line on your side. And you have to have the good side facing, or the finished side facing the neighbor.
So Peg, if I'm trying to get a hold of the building department and I call and I get, good morning, Community Economic Development, am I calling the right place or should I be going somewhere else?
No, the building department is there too.
Great. So not to be confused, we do get calls, people looking for the building department, and we do say Community Economic Development because everyone is together. Like I mentioned, PEG staffs all the admin, and they have to answer the phones for everyone because they are collaborating, both the planning side and the building side. Morgan, how are major transportation projects put on the tip, and what is a tip?
Sure. So The TIP is the Transportation Improvement Plan, the Transportation Improvement Plan. And earlier I mentioned the Boston Region MPO. It's a metropolitan planning organization. MPOs are federally designated planning agencies that they're mandated to exist in all metropolitan areas that have, I believe, 50,000 or more residents. And so what MPOs do is they take the federal money, federal transportation money that is available to states, and they sort of disperse it to different projects. And so the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, is their sort of program or their for that distribution. So for instance, Natick has several projects that are currently on the TIP. Some of them are town projects. Some of them are state projects, like the bridge, the Route 27 bridge over Route 9. That's a state project, but that is on the TIP. That is happening in Natick. Natick is doing some work. The town is doing some work to connect the Cochituate Rail Trail up to Main Street. When the MBTA station is done, that is a town project, but that is also on the TIP. These are projects that are receiving state funding. In order to get on the TIP, you essentially have to apply with the Boston Region MPO. They will score your project based on criteria that align with their own long-range plan, and then they will tell you whether you are or are not on the TIP. If you are, your project, the construction of your project will be funded typically 3 or 4 years out from when you apply.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so this is going to be another question that I'm going to ask each one of you, and is, Olivia, in terms of housing, what is one thing, if you could make sure that people understand, that you would want them to know about housing and housing in Natick? Whether that be resources that we have, inclusionary housing, or just where to access information or information about partners.
I gotta think, there are so many important things about housing in Natick. I think one thing maybe is with the MBTA communities, that it's a great opportunity for Natick to increase housing. I think that's an important thing for people to know, that there's lots of different housing types and needs that people want. Not everyone wants to own a house, and not everybody wants to rent, but having that opportunity is very important for people if they want to stay in this region.
Awesome, thanks. So Morgan, in terms of economic development, what is something that you would like people to know about in terms of economic development in Natick, whether it be business attraction, retention, education, resources, et cetera?
Sure. I think that it's important to recognize that the town does this work, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, we are partners. So Natick Center Associates, the Economic Development Commission, these are all equally important, and sometimes a little bit more so than the work that we're doing. I also think that we have a tremendous opportunity with all the development coming into Natick Center. There are commercial spaces in a lot of them, and I think we have a tremendous opportunity to really add some interesting, cool things into Natick Center that could sort of help us all, I guess, the center thrive.
Is there anything on transportation that you would like to, since you touched on that topic as well?
Yeah, so 2 things. First of all, I'd plug our website. It just got updated. So if you're interested in essentially how to get around Natick, be that via car or bike or transit, you can go to our website, the CED's website. If you go to the transportation tab, you can see sort of getting around Natick, and there's a lot of information there. I'm also going to take this opportunity to plug public outreach events for 2 of the projects that I mentioned. The first is this coming Monday, November 18th. From 6:30 to 8, we will be having a public meeting for the Main Street project in Natick Center that I mentioned. This will be right here in this room, and also screening on Zoom. And there's more details on our website. It'll be sort of a chance for residents and community members to weigh in on potential design alternatives for the future corridor. I will also plug MassDOT is holding a public meeting about the Route 9 and 27 project coming up, and that will be next Thursday. It will be all virtual. I believe it starts at 7. Is that? 7-ish. But check the website. There's information on the website.
And Peg, in terms of like permitting or just accessing information in community economic development, is there something that you constantly get questions about or that you would like people to know that is there and is actually underutilized?
As far as permitting goes, on the building department webpage, there is a fence guideline, a shed guideline, but also how to find your plot plan in the Registry of Deeds in Cambridge. One of my admin assistants spent the last year making all the plot plans that we had on file in the building department. There were thousands of them, and we scanned them all, and then now they're all on the computer. And so if you call us looking for a plot plan and I don't have it, the Registry of Deeds more than likely does, and so we have a nice guide on our website to tell you how to find it on their page.
Awesome, thank you. And Dave, in terms of building enforcement, et cetera, is there anything that you would want people to know or provide them information about?
Building enforcement?
Building enforcement, permitting, your general.
I guess everything. I guess just keep in mind that there's kind of a process for everything, okay? So everything starts, so if you're going to do an addition of something at your own home, again, or if you're going to have, if you have a zoning complaint or whatever, everything has a process. So kind of follow the process, and our website is actually very good. It kind of lays out a lot of the steps to the process. We're always at the windows or whatever to, available to talk to everybody. I can honestly say Natick, we're very lucky that we all get along really well, but we also, all the departments actually get along very well too, which is kind of unique compared to other towns. But so just kind of, I guess everything has a process. We will be happy to direct you. There's just too many things to kind of zero in on one. But again, we're always happy to help you and, kind of keep your project moving.
Awesome. And so what I would like to do is, in terms of the paper that you drew on earlier today, based on the information that you've heard, all the information that is kind of like, that goes into what we do on a daily basis, and this is really only a fraction of what we do regularly. Is there anything that you would have changed or better laid out or planned better, just something, and if anyone has any thoughts on that and they want to share that, they can do that now. Cool. All right. So now we're going to flip into the questions and answers that members of the public have for us. So Olivia has ones that are coming in for people who are not here. And then if there are members in the public that would like to ask questions, we're all here for you. And Jay has the microphone, so just raise your hand and we can go that way. So maybe we'll flip-flop between in person and online.
Sure. The first question is, how are you working towards meeting the Natick 2030 master plan?
Yep. So Natick 2030 master plan, which is actually coming up for a 5-year update, that is not a complete rewrite. It is just to review what is written in 2030 to make sure that we are, one, on track, but two, has anything changed? Because it was written in 2019, pre-COVID. We have to now take into impact the COVID actually changing things. But what we do is that anything that we have done or accomplished on a yearly basis, we make sure that we reflect and look at what is going on in Natick 2030. And so we are working with the different departments. The other departments are working as well, because throughout Natick 2030, there were a series of tables. And in those tables, it said who the lead was, who the supports were. And so the departments do use that to kind of guide their work. So with CED, we were successful in creating an inclusionary housing bylaw. 5 years had gone past, and then we updated that, which was also called out in the master plan first and second. Another item that is in Natick 2030 is looking at these entry points into Natick Center. So what we did was we actually looked at those areas, which is on North Main Street, East Central, South Main Street, and created what we call center gateways. So it would create a transition from the residential or less dense commercial all the way into a higher density area, which is Natick Center. So we do really use Natick 2030 to help guide us. I don't know if anyone else has any thought on that.
I will just say another example, I think, is the Main Street study in Natick Center, I think comes directly from a few different parts of Natick 2030. I think if you look at, I think it's like either the land use or the zoning section has a goal about making Natick Center walkable and accessible for all transportation types. And the transportation section, as I mentioned, one of the goals is to improve multimodal accessibility, so across Natick, so that's accessibility for all different modes of transit or transportation, and the Main Street study fits into that.
I have a question that I think lots of people are anxious about, and that's parking in town. Where do we stand on our parking studies that have been going on for as long as anybody has been around? And what kind of scheduling might be associated with the progress? Just a good update for us.
So in terms of parking, there is a group that is currently working on parking, something brought forward by a business looking for overnight parking if residential was to be added to a project, since we do not allow for off-street parking in public parking lots overnight at this time. That would not have been allowed. But we are working, it is the police department, DPW, the assistant town manager, the town manager, CED, and police are working to really look at that. I also know that Natick Center is looking at parking as well. And I'll let Morgan kind of brief on that because he has been putting together maps to identify the number of parking spaces and locations.
Sure. So I am part of that working group with Amanda. As you all know, parking is a huge, multifaceted thing, and once you start talking about parking, it is hard to stop. There's just so many different variables, I think especially Natick Center. So the working group is tackling a lot of those. I know what I am personally doing is I have been getting data on parking permits from PEG. Our department does issue parking permits in Natick Center, and so I've been sort of doing an analysis on how parking permit purchasing has fluctuated over the years, and this is helping us figure out what we want to use our parking lots for, if we maybe want to reallocate some space, something like that. I've also been working on compiling a number of the amount of parking spaces that we have in Natick Center, what they're currently being used for, and I believe the working group is then going to decide if we want to reallocate anything. I know that the police, because they are enforcement, they're thinking about the parking meters, the way that folks pay for parking, how much parking costs, and we're also trying to be cognizant of the new developments coming in. These, I think, all but one of the new developments provides parking. Then there's parking. All of the developments that have residential use included provides parking. But we know that parking needs may increase as these developments are coming along. So we're trying to stay ahead of that by figuring out the amount of parking that those developments require, how much they are providing, and also I think like how we can sort of reallocate space in order to include all the people who might need to park in Natick Center in the future. So work is still ongoing, and there have only been a few meetings of the working group, and as you can imagine, parking is a thorny issue. So it is something that we are working on.
I just get a little more specific, I think, unless I missed it. In spite of the myriad, or in addition to the myriad of issues that you've been addressing, for some years, ever since we lost a parking garage on Middlesex years ago, I believe there's been studies about replacing the garage, either there or there were a couple of sites behind the police fire station. Where are we on that, those specific parking garages, something that'll really take a.
So in terms of the actual structure of the parking garage, that is a conversation that we've been having. However, we've been looking at it on a different angle, rather than having the town pay for an actual structured parking garage, which is very costly with a low return other than providing parking. So it does provide a resource to businesses and residents and people wanting to visit Natick Center. However, it is a depreciating asset because it is constantly needing maintenance. The cost of a surface parking space versus a structured parking space is very different. You're looking between $10,000 and the difference between maybe $50,000 or $60,000 for a structured parking space, if not more, based on, since we are in the Boston construction area. We have been looking at, one, could we potentially partner with a private developer where they would actually construct the parking garage while allowing for density to go on top of that, whether it be commercial or commercial and residential. We have been also looking at that location, Middlesex. Because of its location, it does allow for some types of collaboration between the landowners as well, because we own quite a bit, but then there's also other parcels that could be potentially redeveloped to allow for a higher use. So that is ongoing, and so we will hopefully have more in basically the year coming forward.
Thank you.
Another question we have is, what is currently happening to attract businesses for all the buildings happening in the new projects downtown?
So I touched on this a little bit during my presentation, but the town, our staff has been working with Natick Center Associates essentially on this issue. We know the developers of this space, obviously, because they have to go through our department to get permits and stuff. So we've been trying to have conversations with them, first of all, about, who do you want to see in this building? Like, for the developers, like, what are you thinking with this commercial space? Who do you want to see in this building? Is there room for this kind of tenant or that kind of tenant? Sort of what's your bottom line here, right? Because a lot of it is dependent on who can pay the rents, and if your rents may not be conducive to sort of smaller businesses, how can we essentially work with you to make that make it so that like smaller businesses can rent these spaces. So we've had those with Natick Center Associates. We've had those conversations with some of the developers, and right now we are working on essentially marketing packets to send to I think different restaurants. I think we're trying to send it to the Restaurant Association and things like that.
And one thing to add in on all of that is, if you know people that are actually looking to locate, or businesses that want to locate in Natick, definitely provide them Morgan's information, because that is a great starting point, although we can't negotiate leases or anything like that. But oftentimes we have a finger on the pulse to know where these vacancies are or what they could be used for. There's a lot of people that think the new development is just a square box, but they don't understand that it's actually already been permitted for restaurant or retail, et cetera. They have to go through the appropriate building permits, but they can build them to suit. So it's not just has to be commercial. It could be restaurants. It could be different types of businesses, but a lot of people don't understand that. But also, there's always an opportunity for a person who's working at their home, whether it be a cake or different type of catering, to find locations, and they may not just know about them. So definitely give Morgan a shout, just if you have any of those questions about that.
Yes. First, just two things. First, just a quick follow-up on the parking from this gentleman's. Does any of the new development that's going up along East Central particularly have its own parking? It's a little hard to tell from walking by.
Yep. So the project at 45 East Central, which is the former St. Pat's School, that does have parking for the residential. And then there would be, I think there's some parking that they've carved out in the front, which would be town parking, but the residential part of it does have off-street parking. And then the parcel that is right next door to the tavern,
Yep.
that actually has parking for the entire project because the owner collaborated with himself to provide parking between the tavern and the new building that was going up. So the idea was the residents are home more in the evening, and those uses in the lower part of that building would be during the day, while you have the tavern kind of going over on both sides. So they do cover their parking for the residential component, and then one does for the retail, and the other one relies on on-street.
That was an easy one. The second one is a bigger one. It may play to what Morgan was just talking about, but it's about, I hear a lot about the character of the town. Every town is different. Parking clearly has an impact on what kind of a town you're going to be. Natick has Route 9, which takes a lot of the pressure off of certain kinds of things that other people would put in their, in their town. So I didn't come from Natick. I came from Needham. I'm familiar with Wellesley. This question of how the character gets developed between what you do and working with the Natick Associates and working with developers, does anyone want to speak to that a little bit? I know it's in the master plan, but that's being kind of 2030. Has that evolved, and where do you think that's going?
Yeah, so I think this is actually everyone at this table actually can touch on this. So really, the character of the town is very difficult to define because you have the New England character. The New England character for Massachusetts versus Maine versus Vermont versus Connecticut is very different, but yet it's the character. So what we actually like to do is look at the neighborhood and see what it is, what are the landmarks? Is there something that's specific like open space or recreation or schools and stuff like that? But then also working with the Historic Commission or Historical District to really make sure that those landmarks are preserved. But I would touch base with Olivia, Morgan, Dave, regarding the character.
I agree with you. It's hard to say. I mean, I grew up here in town and everything, so I mean, Natick is not like it used to be when I grew up here, that's for sure. But, the character is still, hometown, small, kind of community type stuff. I mean, that's what Natick was all about back then. It still is now.
And I will just say that I not to keep harping on about Natick Center Associates, but I think that the work that they do is really key in this. I know that there are a lot of artists that are a part of that, a part of the group, and that art in Natick Center is such a big and important thing. The events that are held in Natick Center, whether it be Natick Days, which is a collaboration between Parks and Rec and Natick Center Cultural District, and I think so they have a really big role to play in that, and that's why I think I'm so grateful to be working with them sort of on this, working with them and, as well as the developers on trying to get or think about who can come into these commercial spaces, because I think they really have an eye for like, okay, Natick, this is Natick, the Natick Center we have, and this is how we can get things that are sort of complementary to it.
And another thing regarding character is you can actually create character in itself. So you could actually change all of the buildings on a street, but if a street is much more tree-lined, where it has oaks or linden plains, where it's much more like you feel like you can belong, sometimes the buildings aren't as big of a factor as the experience that you experience on the street. You could also be in a very dense neighborhood and you not feel that the buildings are so tall because of the different characteristics that they've used for the buildings, where you could be walking by a one-story building and the character of that neighborhood doesn't feel as okay because there's no trees, there's no windows, there's nothing going on. So architecture is a huge thing that we do make sure that we look at and we need to improve looking at. We are fortunate that we have the Design Review Board who does look at Natick Center, Center Gateway, and other projects, but using the new tools that we have. So character is one of those things that we always have to look at. What does it actually mean for this specific situation, if that makes any sense?
Yes.
Besides driving by or walking around and guessing, is there a way for a private citizen to find out what a particular project will include in terms of residential, commercial, number of units, affordability, sizes of those units and such?
So I think it's dependent on the project. OpenGov has the ability, so if you know the project address, you're able to go into the system, look up that, and if they had a planning board decision, it gives out the details in terms of the number of affordable units, how many units total, this number of parking spaces, et cetera. It does not get into the actual size of the unit itself, just because those do change as building happens. But I don't know, do we have any other locations that you would be able to get that information?
Not really. Pretty much OpenGov for the most part. What I would suggest so a lot of those bigger projects that you're talking about, they require either planning board or zoning board approvals and review. Definitely go to one of those meetings, either planning or zoning, because they explain everything out right to the dirt. I mean, and you'll know how big those units are going to be, how many of them, how high the building is going to be, and everything like that. We get plans and stuff once the project is kind of in for permit, but prior to that, it's really kind of in the planning board, zoning board purview. And so again, if you go to one of their meetings, you will learn an awful lot about that project.
Just a quick clarification. Does a private citizen set up a login in OpenGov in order to use the search feature?
Nope.
Because I have poked around a little bit in there, and every address I put in comes back nothing available.
So this is the OpenGov website. It is still trying to load. So the best way to go about this as a resident, if you go up, this is one of our pet peeves. We think that we should be able to type in the stuff right here, because it seems, what are you looking for? Seems like on the homepage, but it's not. If you go up here and you hit search, it'll take you to this page, and then you can actually type in let's see here.
Do Jay's house.
And it'll come down. So each unit is actually assigned a number, just because that's the way the building department works. But you can look at these different things. And the nice part is you can actually see, if you go that avenue, you can see all the permits that have been issued or are currently active. So if you wanted to actually see what the planning board did, you would go right here, planning board, click on that, and it'll actually take you into the application itself. And the best way to find out more information is, one, this is just the details about the project. But if you want to know, like you want to actually find the planning board decision, just go into files. There is a lot of files, but you can actually see all of the plans, the decisions, anything that's kind of their waiver requests, the applications, because we have to stamp those in with the town clerk, the abutter notices, et cetera. And this is all accessible online, but that is unfortunately a trick that we had to learn, and we've been asking OpenGov to change it, but yet it is not. The other thing is if when you flip to records, if you know the project record, so ZB would be zoning board, PB is planning board, building is building, electrical is E, and then the next one is the year. So whatever year it was in, and then the number is the actual number of the permit, and then so a current project that is under review, it's just loading itself. So this is 5 Auburn Street. You can find all that information. And everything that they have provided or staff has provided just come right up into this information here.
So when you do that, so OpenGov, what she's on right now, that's real time. So that's, if I went into my car or on my laptop, whatever, I can pull all this stuff. All my inspectors can pull it all up live. This is what we're going to see. That's the live. We have access to fool around with it and change things, but you guys would be read-only, but what you see is what we see. All right, so that's current.
But if you were filing for a permit, that's when you do have to create a login. And the nice part is with OpenGov, because other communities use OpenGov, you almost get like a wallet. So if you are doing permits in Wellesley, who is an OpenGov, you're doing permits here. There's a couple other, is it Ashland or Lexington, et cetera?
Shrewsbury.
It's one login, and you can actually access any one from those different communities if you're applying. But you do not need to create a an account. And if you have any questions about this, definitely call the office because we can walk you through it. But PEG has been doing an amazing job expanding the number of permits. So even if you want, we have fire department, we have Board of Health, we have licensing, which is select board, we have the planning board. We've even brought in on the library, which is huge. We have the historic commission, zoning board of appeals. We continue to expand this. And then there's also, PEG's been working wonders in terms of if you have a swimming pool and you needed a permit, originally you had to file for a building permit and then a health permit. And now it's actually one application that kind of goes through the process. So this has really helped us in terms of permitting efficiency. We continue to improve upon it.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering about bridges. I know Morgan talked about like the 927 bridge, and that's in progress. And I remember the Marion Street Bridge took a long time to get replaced and everything. And then now there's is it Bowdoin, the one in West Natick? Is there something the town could do to improve like the turnaround time on getting these things financed? And I understand it's complicated when like the state owns this and the town owns that and whatnot. But yeah, is there something that we can do to improve that to get those back up and running more quickly?
I hear your pain. I think it's tricky, especially so the state. I don't know if they own all of the bridges in Natick, but they do own most of them, especially over the commuter rail tracks like Bowdoin Lane, and they work on their own timeline. I know that I'm pretty sure it was Bowdoin Lane that has actually been, believe it or not, expedited, and I think that is in part because of advocacy from the town. So we do. Part of our work on these projects is, Mass DOT will contact us, and we do have the ability to sort of talk to them about things, relay citizen concerns, that kind of thing. And so in that back and forth, I think we can say, hey, this is a real priority. Can you, but ultimately they work on their own schedule. So it's tough, but yeah.
Well, I guess one thing I was wondering is could you take ownership? Can we buy those bridges from the state and then then you take responsibility, and it's probably not worth it in the long run. But I was just thinking
I don't know the answer to that question. I think I would have to ask DPW because I know engineering is maybe more in tune with maintenance, actual day-to-day operations on bridges. So I would have to ask them. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Something you should keep in mind with a bridge like the Bowdoin Street Bridge. There's water lines that go over there. There's all sorts of things that to replace the bridge like Marion Street, it was just it took forever, but at least they kind of plunked a new bridge in there. This one has all sorts of water lines and everything else that actually the town has problems with it freezing and all sorts of other stuff. So it's not as easy as just replacing the bridge as much as we would all love to see that because it's been forever. And again, as I kind of said before, everything has a process, and welcome to the state. It is what it is.
And just to tag on to that, a lot of it, as Dave said, is utility coordination, and we know that can be challenging sometimes. For the 927 project coming up, I believe the first full year or so will be utility work. So it's hard to understate the importance of, contacting the utility companies, getting them to move things above or below ground, that sort of stuff. So it's a process. But we do, when we can, we do try to, say, look, this is in our town, we need to be able to, use this.
I have another question. It says, can you get a street party closure permit on OpenGov?
That's a PEG question.
A street party. Oh. So different neighborhoods throughout the town have a block party. And yes, you can apply through OpenGov on the select board page.
So I had asked this online, but I think because it previously got asked sort of in a different way, I'd like to re-ask it. I get a lot of questions from people as I talk around town, why there isn't one single list somewhere that just is simplified. The OpenGov trying to find how many apartments and what's happening is just really, and I know for you guys that would probably be time consuming, but it would be really nice as a resident if there was a spot that said, this building is looking to have this many single-bedroom, doubles, triples, this one's looking to have this, the price ranges are looking to be this. We're just looking for a general, generic, overall page that doesn't legally bind us to anything, but that gives us guidelines so that we don't have to go through all of that very specific learning, but can just figure out kind of just a general where we are.
So you basically want my table of development?
Yeah, if you have one.
I
We'd
absolutely
love to
do.
have access to that.
Awesome. So we can, so we've been working on improving the webpage. So I do keep a table, so I know what's happening every year. It's just, there's a lot of information on it, but more than happy to share it. I've shared it because I've had it in other communities I've worked in, and then we can continue to add that. But we can create a web page which would actually be located on our homepage, and then we can put that Excel sheet on there. There's a lot of information, but it's been tracked since I've actually gone back because we had to do it. We like to do it for just good housekeeping, so I've had it since I've gotten here. But then when we were doing the hazard mitigation plan, we actually had to go back to 2016. So we actually had the projects all the way back to that. So we can definitely create that website and then get that on there. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question. Brindley, are you truly looking for all development, or is it potentially just multifamily and commercial of particular interest?
So I think what would be helpful for those of us who get these questions, who want to help answer these questions for residents who are so curious, because there are some of us who are actually out talking to people a lot. Maybe if that was divided in this is what's happening downtown, so I could send somebody to that and say, yes, these 4 projects that are happening downtown right now have this, and this is what's happening down in South Natick, and this is what they're looking at, so that it's more a matter of area specific. Does that help?
Maybe less private residents?
I don't know that, I don't get questions about private residences.
Yeah.
I get questions about the massive building that's happening and people trying to understand, because when you look at it, if you look at just the front, sometimes it's really small, and then you drive around the back and you're like, oh my God, it's 500 apartments. So I think it's more a matter of helping to calm the fears that we're not adding 1,559 new apartments in 500 feet of downtown type of thing.
And yeah, so this table only really has the more commercial side. We do have subdivisions in it because that does create more than one unit, but the projects that go in front of the ZBA, we do not, just because those are additions usually. So we can definitely do that and narrow it down as well, because it would be a little overwhelming, which is why we hadn't actually released it, just because there's a lot on it, but we can, more than happy to do that. Yeah.
They gave me the microphone.
All right.
What a mistake. No, I work at Mass Bay, and I've worked in education, and wouldn't that be a great project for our students that need to learn GPS, to transfer that table that would be in an Excel sheet into a GPS map of 2024 projects?
If you have somebody that would actually, I used to create the same, when I was in Framingham, which I was at prior to, every year I would create a map and I would identify all the parcels and identify the projects that were occurring on those projects would be part of my report. If you had a program that actually does that, we would be more than happy to talk to them. In addition to other internship projects, we have things regarding parking, housing, et cetera, that we actually look for interns.
Yeah, but the focus, I just wanted to focus on that one wonderful idea and translate it into a question of, wouldn't that be a great way for civic education and GPS education?
GIS.
Did I say it wrong? I'm sorry. GIS, GPS for us in the car, right? and coordinate a learning opportunity that would save you some time and help our citizens find that annually.
Absolutely. If we could talk about that, would be great.
Who would we talk about would be the after question?
Just contact me, and then we can.
Us.
Yep, and we're more than happy to come to classes, et cetera.
Are there any more questions?
None that are different.
So I think I just wanted to reiterate on the website. So we are continuing to improve this. Now that we have a communications director, we also have staff that can update and continually provide information. Our goal is to continue to improve. So as you may have seen for town meeting or the transportation or the housing, we're starting to, and Community Preservation Act, we're starting to put together one-pagers that you can just kind of get highlighted information about a project. And then if you want to learn more, definitely contact us. We're always here. Sometimes, just so everyone's aware, email is a little bit easier sometimes to catch us because we are in meetings, but we'd love to get information back. Also, if you have ideas, let us know. Even if it's just an improvement on the website or, hey, do you have this information? Let us know, because that is one of the big things that we can actually turn things around if it works within the system. There's certain things we can't do, but our goal is to help everybody, whether you're a business owner, a landowner, a resident, just visiting the community, actually understand what is happening in the community, whether it's transportation, housing, land use, et cetera. Everyone should be able to know what's going on in their community. So again, we're working on improving that, and that's the one thing, is communication is our biggest asset that we have, because CED, or Community Economic Development, touches everything that the town does, but if we didn't communicate, we wouldn't get much done. So I don't know if anyone else has any.
Yeah, I just would like to say one last thing of, I'm a part of a race committee for the Frosty 5K, and I had to use the permitting process online this year as opposed to how we've done it in the past, and it was fantastic. Very easy. The office was very easy to work with. It's been wonderful. So I, as a resident, am very grateful for the changes that you guys have been working on in cleaning things up and making it easier. It really is making a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you for attending. I believe there's more open Natick 101 sessions that will follow. I'm not sure what the schedule is, but Jay would be in communication with you on that. And then also, when you do get a chance, as Olivia mentioned, most of these pages do have a notify me. Go to the notify me if you want to receive more information about those specific topics. I know Olivia is pushing things out regarding affordable housing, and Morgan's doing things regarding transportation, economic development. The best thing you can do is just to be notified. And so thank you so much for coming, and thank you for my staff for coming out. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to contact us.